visited Peru for the first time in the spring of 2019. My partner, Carol, and I were among the 24 participants on a week-long tour of the country organized by Go Ahead. The ancient Inca ruins of Machu Picchu had been high on our bucket list, but we were also looking forward to visiting other historical Peruvian cities, such as Lima and Cusco. At this time of the year, Lima is not particularly attractive due to persistent drizzle and overcast skies. With more residents than either London or New York, the sprawling, gritty city of almost 10 million inhabitants is home to about a third of the country's entire population. We got an initial look at the people here on our first day bus tour of Lima. Peruvians today live in a diverse, multicultural society. It clearly reflects the dominance of a Spanish culture. Beginning in the 16th century, Catholicism was forcibly imposed on the surviving indigenous population. Fortunately, their pre-Christian heritage has not been totally obliterated during the past 500 years. The spectacular achievements of the Inca Empire are increasingly being recognized, celebrated, and preserved. They're clearly visible everywhere, much to the delight of visitors who travel from afar to marvel more at the ancient Inca ruins than at the ornate cathedrals and palaces built by the Spanish conquerors. Lima was founded in 1535 by the Spanish conquistador Francisco Pizarro. He had captured Atahualpa, the last Inca emperor. Despite the payment of an enormous ransom, a huge room full of gold and 2 of silver, the emperor was executed and Pizarro kept the ransom for himself. Many years of fighting ended in the establishment of the Viceroyalty of Peru. For the next 250 years, Lima served as the capital of Spain's effort to colonize and rule most of South America. All Inca temples were destroyed and replaced by Catholic churches. Many thousands of indigenous people were massacred or enslaved. They were forced into mining gold and silver that was shipped off to Spain. The local office of the Inquisition put to death anyone whose beliefs deviated from Catholicism. As mining expanded, the workforce was supplemented by slaves from Africa. After a series of wars of liberation, Peru finally gained its independence from Spain and became a sovereign nation in 1824. Pizarro is buried in Lima Cathedral, which contains an elaborate display of every single bone in his body. Much of the gold and silver that was not sent to Spain was used in the opulent decoration of the many Peruvian churches and cathedrals with their ornate altars, murals, statues, ceilings, and side chapels. Some of the statues depict Christ wearing a demure skirt instead of a loincloth, a deliberate attempt to combine Christian images and symbols with those of the Incas. The Virgin Mary is sometimes adorned with a grass skirt as well, and other symbols of fertility that link her to the Incas' Pachamama, or Mother Earth. One of the best collections of Inca art is to be found in Larco Museum. This is a privately owned museum that provides an overview of 5,000 years of Peruvian art prior to the arrival of the Spaniards. The many thousands of ceramics in the museum's collection portray people, gods, animals, and scenes of everyday life, including warfare and human sacrifices. The Inca Empire was the third major empire of the Andean peoples. It began forming around 800 years ago in the Peruvian highlands, with the city of Cusco as its capital. The Inca Empire was the largest in pre-Columbian America, north or south. The Inca's emperor was considered to be the son of the sun in the sky. He ruled over an estimated 6 to 14 million inhabitants in a realm that extended for thousands of miles from what is today's Bolivia in the north to Chile in the south. Despite the lack of wheeled vehicles, any large animals to ride or pull plows, any knowledge of iron, and any writing system, the Incas managed to create one of the greatest imperial states in human history. Visitors can stroll through the museum storerooms containing 30,000 meticulously catalogued artifacts of ancient pottery. Modern-day Peru is divided into 25 regions. Lima is its own region and has its own governor. The city is subdivided into 43 districts, each with its own mayor and local government. We stayed in the district called Miraflores, one of the safest and most affluent parts of the city. Security guards were visible everywhere, a reflection that the city has been struggling to keep a rampant crime rate in check. The Parque del Amor, Lima's Love Park, celebrates love in all its forms. The colorful mosaics were clearly inspired by Gaudi's in Barcelona. Kennedy Park is a favorite spot in Miraflores for both tourists and locals, including a sizable population of resident cats. The Miraflores district is swept clean by a large number of masked sanitation workers, many of whom are women. There was a student concert being performed in front of the Church of the Miraculous Virgin. This 19th century church is known for its dramatic interior lighting. Dancing to recorded Latin music is a popular weekend activity in Kennedy Park, which attracts onlookers of all ages. After a full day in Lima, we were glad to leave this grimy city and take the 90-minute flight to sunny Cusco, located high up in the Andes Mountains at an elevation of more than 11,000 feet. For 3 centuries, the city of 500,000 was the capital of the sprawling Inca Empire. It later became the center for Spanish colonization and the Christianization of the Andean region. The large brown stones and rocks which formed the basis of Inca architecture have been recycled and are visible in many colonial walls, buildings, and other structures. On the main square is the imposing cathedral, whose construction dates from the 16th century. To the right of the cathedral is the rival Jesuit church built on the foundations of an Inca royal palace. Both contain red granite rocks taken from the local Inca fortress. The cathedral's ornate interior features a painting of the Last Supper with Jesus and his disciples feasting on a large guinea pig, a traditional Andean delicacy. The stone arcades along the plaza were built centuries ago by the Spaniards and still provide welcome shade for young and old alike. It took me a while to adjust to the thinner air at Cusco's high elevation, which caused some altitude sickness. I felt much better after 10 minutes of oxygen available at our hotel. High above the ancient Inca capital of Cusco are the ruins of Sacsayhuaman. The sprawling mountaintop complex consisted of fortified towers, walls, barracks, and warehouses. In the center of the complex is a large plaza, capable of holding thousands of people for ceremonial activities. Some of the stones are among the largest to be found in any structure in the Western Hemisphere, each weighing up to 200 tons. The precision engineering involved in fitting the unevenly shaped stones together is also unmatched and remains something of a mystery today. The stones were excavated at a nearby quarry by work crews from around the Inca Empire. Thousands of workers struggled to drag these huge stones up the hill using ropes and complex ramps. They were then cut to their final shape at the building site and set in place without the use of any mortar or other material. The Spaniards systematically demolished the complex and used the stones to build their own houses, churches, and other buildings. There's hardly a house in the city that doesn't contain some of this stone. Only those rocks too big to be easily removed remain at this historic site. A sheltered area with smooth rocks was where human sacrifices took place. Today, soccer is one of the major mass entertainments everywhere. The enormous Estadio Garcilaso opened in 1960 and seats over 40,000 spectators. While it's not readily apparent, Coricancha was the most important temple in the entire Inca Empire. Built some 600 years ago, it was destroyed by the Spaniards and replaced by the Santo Domingo Church and Convent. Coricancha was dedicated to Inti, the sun god, once revered as the patron and protector of the Inca state. The Incas used precision ashlar masonry, whereby smoothly polished interlocking stones were fitted together without any mortar and laid in parallel rows. The Spaniards marveled at the walls that were covered with sheets of gold. The last Incas removed them as part of the ransom to save the life of their emperor. After killing the last Inca monarch, all the magnificent gold artwork was melted down and shipped off to Spain. Cusco's San Blas neighborhood is a small distance from the center of town. It contains a lovely 16th century church with a gold-covered Baroque altar and a remarkable pulpit carved from the trunk of a single tree. Unlike the British, Dutch, and French who colonized North America, the Spaniards almost immediately began to intermarry with the native populations in their newly acquired territories. Despite lingering social hierarchies, Peruvians today, like most Latin Americans, proudly embrace the diverse multiracial heritage of both their European and their indigenous pre-Columbian ancestors. I was relieved to come down from the high-altitude city of Cusco and begin our exploration of the Sacred Valley. As the Incas considered Cusco to be the navel of the world, so the Sacred Valley was its breadbasket and the Urubamba River its lifeblood. The valley's mild climate and sun-baked hills are ideal for growing a large variety of grains and vegetables. Pisac was the largest city in the Sacred Valley that we visited. It is known for its extensive handicrafts market, which used to be one of the largest in all of South America. Today's market offers not just a wealth of fresh produce, but also supplies many busloads of tourists with the Peruvian artesanías, including silver jewelry, ceramics, alpaca clothing, carved gourds, pan pipes, and a host of other souvenir trinkets.
The stores that people sell to you like baby alpaca. What's this 100% synthetic acrylic plastic? The only alpacas are these pictures that are here.
Some women in traditional dress earn money by posing for tourists with their llamas and alpacas, but the young animals in their arms are actually baby lambs. Less than 50 miles from Cusco is Ollantaytambo with its extensive archaeological ruins. In the mid-15th century, the Inca Emperor Pachacuti conquered the region. He oversaw construction of a new town in the valley, with sumptuous housing for members of his clan, the Inca nobility. Along the surrounding hillsides, he undertook an extensive installation of terraced farming, long-term agricultural storage facilities, and elaborate irrigation systems. Between the massive storage facilities for crops can be seen a stone image of Viracocha, revered as the creator god in Incan mythology. The impressive hill temple is accessed by a series of stairways that lead up to the top of the temple complex. Construction of the hilltop temples was incomplete and abandoned by the Incas when the town came under Spanish rule. The native population was assigned to serve Francisco Pizarro's younger brother, Hernando. We spent only one night at this beautiful Inca Terra hacienda in Urubamba, by far our nicest accommodation of the entire trip. We easily could have spent more time here in this exceptional hotel, with its breathtaking views of the sacred valley and its surrounding mountains. Not surprisingly, this five-star hotel is cited by National Geographic as one of the unique lodges of the world. Architecture and interiors are inspired by the area's cultural history, with colonial furniture, authentic Inca masks, and handicraft work that add to the hacienda's local charm. An earth-to-table concept is operated with a 10-acre organic plantation where guests are welcome to pick their own produce. Quinoa, giant corn, medicinal herbs, and a variety of potatoes are farmed with traditional hand tools and oxen. We were truly sorry to leave this amazing place after spending only one night here. We boarded a train at the Ollantaytambo station that took us to Aguascalientes, the town used as the base camp for visitors to Machu Picchu. With some glimpses of snow-capped peaks, the train wound its way through fertile farmland on its 90-minute trip to the vast rainforests on the eastern side of the Andes Mountains. As its name indicates, Aguascalientes was renowned for its thermal baths. With its many eateries, hotels, and gift shops, today the town principally serves as the gateway for the thousands of visitors from around the world who daily come to visit nearby Machu Picchu. Machu Picchu has been on our bucket list of top sites to visit for many years, and it did not disappoint. The citadel's remote setting atop an 8,000-foot-high ridge is incomparable, with spectacular panoramic mountain views in all directions. This 80-acre complex was built around 1450 as an estate for the Emperor Pachacuti. Although it was never discovered by the Spaniards, the Incas mysteriously abandoned the estate at the time of the Spanish conquest, possibly due to smallpox or some other epidemic. For centuries, the site was known only to a handful of local farmers. In 1911, it was rediscovered and introduced to the world by Hiram Bingham III. He falsely believed he had come across the reputed lost capital city of the Incas. During its use as a royal estate, some 750 people lived and worked in Machu Picchu on a year-round basis. In addition to agricultural workers, the estate housed a number of others specializing in construction, religious activities, or caring for the ruler's personal well-being. Farming was done on hundreds of man-made terraces. This allowed for greater acreage and created microclimates for different crops to be grown at different altitudes. The site is divided into an agricultural sector and an urban area, with temples in the upper town and warehouses further below. The site's 200 buildings are arranged on parallel terraces around a central square. The main buildings are polished dry stone walls, where blocks of stone are cut to fit together tightly without mortar. The terraces are built for optimal drainage and soil fertility. They also help minimize erosion and landslides. Crops grown were primarily corn, potatoes, grains, and vegetables. Most animal bones were from llamas and alpacas, in addition to guinea pigs, which were used throughout the Inca Empire for both meat and ritual sacrifices. Given the limited space devoted to agriculture, it's believed that much of the food consumed here was imported from surrounding valleys. As Peru's most heavily visited tourist site, Machu Picchu is one of the most popular attractions in all of South America. With well over 1 million visitors annually, the site is in danger of being over-visited. There are now tighter entrance rules designed to limit the number of daily visitors to 2,500. For years, a dispute raged between Peru and the United States over the many thousands of artifacts that were removed during American expeditions, such as pottery, statues, jewelry, and human bones. The majority had been taken to Yale University for study and exhibition at its Peabody Museum. Most of these have since been returned and are now on display in Cusco. On our last day in Aguascalientes, we went on a nature walk through a nearby section of rainforest. Braving the midday heat, we were able to see a variety of birds and plants, especially some of the area's nearly 400 species of orchids. The oldest portions of these unusual petroglyphs appear to include some from an earlier pre-Incan period.
You see the glacier.
As in other parts of the world, one sees many unfinished buildings here. Residents can thus avoid paying real estate taxes, which are only levied on completed structures. On our train ride back to Ollantaytambo, we were treated to a little fashion show staged by the train's own staff. While not many outfits were sold, the show provided some entertainment for both passengers and some youngsters watching from outside the train. Hillside farming dates back to pre-Incan times and continues to be practiced in modern Peru and elsewhere today. It affords protection from the wind and provides nighttime solar heat radiation from the stone walls, thus increasing the variety of crops that can be grown at any given altitude. Picturesque snow-capped peaks can be found year-round in the Andes Mountains. The tiny sheds and other small structures seen in open fields mark real estate plots to which individuals have laid claim for future development. In the Sacred Valley is the town of Maras, best known for the nearby salt mines Salineras. Since pre-Inca times, many tons of salt have been produced by evaporating water from a salty underground stream. Today's salt mining farmers use the same technique that their ancestors developed many centuries ago. Spring-fed water containing 60% salt flows through an intricate system of channels that drain into more than 5,000 little rectangular ponds. Each pond is typically less than 4 meters square, with a depth of under 30 centimeters or less than a foot. The gently downhill flowing water is gravity fed through a notch in one side wall of each rectangular pond. When a pond has been filled, the inflow notch is closed off. Then the sun goes to work evaporating the water and crystallizing out the salt. After a few days, the dry salt is scraped out and the process begins anew. Maintenance of the thousands of feeder channels and pond walls, along with the removal of the salt deposits, is the shared responsibility of a local mining collective. Several hundred residents from nearby communities make up this salt mining collective, as they have from time immemorial. Each pond produces about 10 pounds of salt a day, or 150 kilograms a month. The salt varies in color from white to pinkish tan. After minimal processing and packaging, it's sold worldwide as Peruvian pink salt. The largest of the three Morai depressions, lined with circular terraces, is 100 feet deep and about 7 times as wide. The Incas likely took these naturally occurring sinkholes and built them into agricultural laboratories. Due to the large temperature difference at the top and bottom of the depressions, the terraces served as test beds to study how a wide variety of crops grew in different microclimates. The Incas developed thousands of different types of corn and potatoes that are still eaten today. Chinchero is Peru's center for weaving. At the textile co-op, local women in traditional costumes demonstrate how wool is washed, dyed, and spun. Llamas and alpacas are well adapted to this mountain habitat. Since prehistoric times, llamas have been widely used both as a meat and pack animal. While both species can successfully crossbreed, alpacas are considerably smaller. The wool produced by both species is soft and lanolin-free, thus being hypoallergenic but not water repellent. The importance of this town with its adobe houses dates back to Inca times, when it served as a country resort for the royal family. A massive stone wall surrounds an extensive central plaza where daily textile and food markets take place. Chinchero is the likely site for a new international airport to serve the growing number of visitors to the area. Opponents fear it would overwhelm the region's fragile infrastructure. We returned to Cusco the day before our flight back to Lima. As in many other countries, the poor people live on the outskirts of a city. Amid the stark poverty and squalor, people simply dump their plastic bags full of garbage onto the street or sidewalk. In addition to viewing some unique and spectacular natural scenery, our perusal of Peru gave us some insight into the highly evolved civilization that the Spanish conquerors tried to obliterate some 500 years ago. While they were successful in Christianizing most of the Western Hemisphere, traces of ancient indigenous traditions still survive and can be seen everywhere. The clash between tradition and modernity is a universal phenomenon and probably as inevitable as the struggle everywhere between young and old, conservative and progressive forces. While Lima and other major cities offer modern housing and jobs for large populations, the farming communities in the Andean Mountains provide a better glimpse into a traditional way of life that stubbornly perseveres despite, or perhaps because of, the internet, globalization, and international tourism.